What's up guys? In today's video, I'm going to teach you and I'm going to show you how to create a global state in React.js. You're going to see that is something ultra, very, mega simple. And yeah, let's go and let's start doing this. So, okay, what is the first thing that we have to do? The first thing that we have to do is that we must create a context. So how do we actually create a context? Okay, let's go here to the source folder and we are going to create a new folder called context. So here we put context. Okay, perfect. And now what we are going to do is that we are going to create a file called, well, indeed, since we can have a lot of context, what we are going to do is that we are going to create another folder called auth. So this is going to be the authentication the authentication state, global state. Okay, perfect. So now what we are going to do is that we are going to create a file called auth context.js. Okay, first of all, what is a context? So as you may know, React works with a tree-based component. So for example, you have this component and this other component has another child, this child has another child, and so on, so on, so on, so on. So basically, sharing the data between the components is not something very easy. So with this context, what you do is that you have somewhere stored basically data that you need, and any component can access that data without having to do something very silly or difficult. So okay, how do we create this context? So from React, we are going to import a function called create context. As simple as this. Okay, so now we have the function that will allow us to create a context. So here, what we are going to do is that we are going to put export const auth context. Okay, and here, okay, let me put it here. Here, we are going to call this function create context. Okay, so now what we have to create is that we must create the reducer. So how do we actually create the reducer? It is as simple as creating a file, and we are going to call this authReducer.js. That's right. Okay, and here we just have to create a simple function which is going to return some things depending on the type of the action. You are going to see this right now. So for example, here, export const authReducer, and we are going to have a function that is going to receive a state, okay, which is going to be by default an object, and here an action. The action is going to have two things: the payload, which is the data that we must store or we must change or whatever, and the type of action. That type is going to be defined by us. So for example, it can be, I don't know, login, it can be logout, whatever. Okay, so indeed what we are going to do is that we are going to define very, very, very fast these types. So here what we are going to do is that we are going to create a file called types.js and put export const types. And for now, we are just going to have the two types. So for example, we are going to have the login, and this is just a simple string. So for example, we can put, okay, for the auth provider, well, for the auth reducer, I want to have the action called login. That's it. And okay, let's put here logout. Okay, oh my god, logout, and here auth logout. These strings must be unique, so yeah, make sure that these strings are unique. So for example, if you want to implement another login, put something different here. Okay, now we have the types. So what we are basically going to do right now is that, okay, we are going to create a switch. Okay, switch, here we have it. So depending on the type of the action, whether it's login, logout, or whatever else we create, we are going to do some things. So for example, in the first case, in the case on which the type is login, we are going to basically return, okay, logged is going to be true. And here in the payload, we will have the information of the user. So now we are going to destruct the action.payload so that here we have all the information of the user that we receive. Okay, perfect. So which other action do we have to implement? We have to implement the logout. So here, case types, logout, that's right, and we are going to put this. So of course logged must be set to false, and indeed we can leave the ID to an empty string. Indeed, we could take basically the object that we created on the init function before, but yeah, whatever. So we are going to leave this like this. Perfect. And now we finally need a default case, a case in which, for example, we send an action that is not here, that is not stored. So for example, we are going to take this, perfect, and we are going to place it here. Oh my god, let me take it here, and we place it here. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have the reducer, we can create basically the provider. So here we are going to create a file, and check this out. Here the first letter is a capital letter of provider, because this is going to be a component, a React component. RAFC. By the way, you don't really need to put .jsx, it truly doesn't matter. I put it because I like it. Here I have the symbol, but you do not have to do it. Okay, so now we have this component that is going to return basically the provider, and yeah, basically it is going to be a component which is going to have children, and those children are going to be able to access to that state. Okay, so first of all, how do we receive those children? So here, you just put children, and if I'm not wrong, this is called a high order component. So here, since this is a high order component, what we are going to do is that it is going to have children. Yeah. So okay, here what we have to do is that we must take the auth context, we must import that context, and now we are going to put here provider. Okay, for now we are going to leave it like this. Now what we must do is that inside here we must place the children. So here we open these curly brackets and we are going to put children. Okay, children. Perfect. But the auth provider must provide something. What does it have to provide? It has to provide a value, and this value is going to be an object, okay, that here is going to have, first of all, a user. Okay, we are going to define that user later. Also, it's going to define loading in case we are loading the login or whatever. It is going to return also a dispatch. This is going to be a function that will allow the user, well, not the user, the developer, to basically call these actions in the reducer. Okay, next we are going to have a login function, and a log out. That's it. That's what we are going to do. So here, what we are going to do is that we are going to define all this. Don't worry, we are not going to do this too in the video. We are just going to define the very basics. So yeah. So how do we do this? Okay, first of all, what we have to do is that we must call the hook use reducer, and here we are going to receive the auth use reducer that we defined before. Now here we are going to send an empty object, and here we are going to send the init function that we defined before. So check that out. Here we have this imported. Perfect. So now the use reducer returns two things. So for example, here we are going to put this. We are going to have first the user, this is the user object that we are returning here, and the dispatch function. This dispatch function is the one that will allow us to call the reducer and, for example, log in, log out, and do whatever we want. Perfect. So what else do we have to do? So for example, here, what we are going to do is that we are going to start defining dispatch. This is not well written. Okay, perfect. So we are going to start defining the functions, and for this video is going to be enough. So okay, we are going to define the login. We will use Firebase to log in. Okay, perfect. And we are going to define the logout. That's right, async. Perfect. And I think that we can leave it here. In the next video, what we are going to do is that we are going to define these two functions, the login and the logout, and here we are going to start using the authentication product of Firebase. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember that if you want to learn how to code trading bots, I know that it is not related to this, But yeah, if you want to know that, you have my course in the description. So yeah, if you're interested, go there. So I hope that you understood everything, that you liked the video, and if so, give it a like, share, subscribe, and we see each other in the next one.